Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe.
Everybody, welcome to the Rock and Jouv Show.
How's it going, everyone? So obviously we had the NBA draft on the 18th on Wednesday. I think we're just going to go over everything, talk about our own mock draft we did on this show, what we did right, what we did wrong, analyze everyone's picks, and which drafts were like the most and the worst.
If you hadn't listened to part one, it's on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. We'll leave a link to it in the description if we can figure out how.
So honestly, if we could try to get the link in the description, we might even, if we could, you ever watch those videos where like they put that up on the screen, get that link on? If we could do that,
Yeah, you get a better chance of seeing God than me, than us figuring that shit out. Check that video out if you can. That's part one. We draft all 30 teams. But in this episode, we're going to kind of go through what we had correct from the draft, go over some picks that we thought were whack, some picks that went the way we thought they were going to, and maybe some steals from the draft. So go ahead and pull up our mock draft.
We're kind of just freeballing at this episode.
I'm in my gym jams, recording this at midnight. It's important to get that content out. We want to be the podcasting duo that provides. This is what it takes to be elite, I think.
Absolutely.
We're there. So just as a reminder, he won the coin toss. He got the odds. I got the evens. I guess right off the bat, we can already say that the first three teams that we had, you were correct in both of yours. So in Minnesota, you had them taking Anthony Edwards, number one. You know, looking back at it, if I can say, I don't think he was a consensus number one.
No, there was a lot of LaMelo Ball smoke.
Yeah, I think the only reason that he went number one is because they already have a point guard and they already have a center, and those are the next two best players. Looking back at his highlights and everything like that, he's not an overall player like Zion was. You know, he's not a number one overall, I don't think.
Honestly, like this draft class at the top wasn't the strongest. Like I think if everybody in this draft class were in the class last year, like I think Anthony Edwards would have gone like fourth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And I think next year, if we added them both, I mean, it's early. I haven't really done very much homework on that draft. A lot of people like that draft a lot, and a lot of people said Anthony Edwards probably would have gone like fifth.
No, that definitely makes sense. I don't remember who chose fifth last year. He's not a player that you have to grab, I think. He ended up the number one pick, so good for him.
Yeah, I think it's just a really good, at least offensively. Like they're going to be an offensive juggernaut if they can get Edwards right. And then we'll talk about their later draft pick that I also liked as well. If we're talking about Anthony Edwards, we might as well go over. You heard he had that weird interview where he said that he's not that like passionate about basketball and that like he would rather be playing in the NFL.
Oh my gosh.
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, it was like it came out maybe the night before, the morning of the draft, and he did some interviews like, yeah, in the NFL, like you can score a touchdown, you could spike the ball, you could show, but in the NBA, like you'll get fined and benched. And he's just like, in the NFL, you could show more emotion. He's just like, the main reason I'm playing basketball is because I'm much better at it.
Yeah, you do.
He's like, so he's like, I love basketball because like I'm good at it, and that's gonna be like my ticket.
Get your money, absolutely.
A lot of people thought that was like reminiscent of like Andrew Wiggins. Like he got his max contract and then he kind of just coasted. Not necessarily, but what some people feel.
Sure. The next pick I had Golden State. I had them trading this away. Kind of knew. I thought they were going to trade this. I really did.
No, I did as well. But I mean, obviously we know now Klay Thompson did tear his Achilles.
Very unfortunate. 2 years without Klay Thompson.
I'm really upset about that.
The same thing that happened to John Wall. I don't know if it was his Achilles, out for 2 years basically.
Yeah,
I mean, that's tragic.
I think it was too.
You know, they take James Wiseman. I mean, that's a great pick. And it's funny, after watching more video of him, I was like, damn, I really would have liked James Wiseman. They took James Wiseman. That'll be nice for the long term for them. I don't really know what they're going to do because they can't compete this year without Klay.
They did just trade for Kelly Oubre.
Yeah, but did you see how much money that put them over? I think they owe like $70 million in tax.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't know how that worked. I didn't really look into it, but
I don't know if I like the fit of him at the two, just like I didn't really know about D'Angelo Russell at the two last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, but free agency is going to open up. I'm sure they'll get somebody. And I mean, Kelly Oubre is a great player.
No, definitely.
This is a really solid addition for not too steep of a price. Ultimately, we had the right player at two, but they kind of surprised everyone by keeping the pick.
And I think I was just kind of wishful thinking. I was just kind of hoping Golden State would pull off this nice trade, get rid of Wiggins, get rid of the number 2 pick, retain Klay, keep Draymond, keep Steph. they were going to get this like baller at number 2, but it just didn't end up happening. I mean, just wishful thinking. Number 3, though, you were correct. You had LaMelo Ball, and Charlotte got their ball.
I think the only thing that could have prevented this would have been Charlotte deciding to trade down. If Charlotte put together a trade for Russell Westbrook and then was like, yeah, we'll trade down and get as many assets as we can, maybe like another decent player out of it. I think they made the right decision because they're not a win now team. If they got Russell Westbrook, I mean, maybe they might be the 8 seed. Like any team in the East that gets Russell Westbrook might be the 8 seed, but like who really cares, you know?
He could honestly,
Like,
he might be able to dominate in the East. We've never seen him there, so
yeah.
I don't
But
know.
I mean, overall, the right pick. I mean, LaMelo has crazy potential, so they're gonna have to develop him so he doesn't like become a bust, you know.
No, absolutely, and I think he is going to thrive on this Charlotte team. Him and Devontae Graham. I don't know if they'll be changing off minutes. I don't think Devontae is really large enough to play the 2 guard, but LaMelo is certainly a point guard. So
Just as a side note, a lot of teams have just been drafting like 2 point guards. I mean, it kind of all started like Portland had Dame, and then CJ McCollum, who was drafted as a point guard, they molded him into a 2.
that's what
And now
Marcus
like
Smart
everybody's
was.
doing that.
Out of
No,
college,
exactly.
Marcus Smart,
Marcus Smart as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. But okay, so Chicago decided to switch it up. I had them taking Obi Toppin here. Okay, the number 4 pick. I thought that would have been a great pick, and this pick came out of nowhere in real life. Okay, so they take Patrick Williams. Did we
Yes.
even take Patrick Williams in the first round? Oh yes, we did. We took him number 17. So you took him to Minnesota in the mock draft, but we were incorrect. He actually went number 4. What do you think about that?
This was interesting because when I first started following this draft, like in depthly, I would say around like March, like when quarantine started, he was a guy who was supposed to go in the 20s, and the Knicks had picked 27. I was like, oh, he could be interesting at 27 if he falls or something like that, or if he's there. And he slowly just rose up draft boards and rose up draft boards, and he kind of just turned into the ultimate project pick. I mean, like at the very least, he'll be like a good hunter in the NBA, and he's pretty athletic. But he rose up draft boards, and then all of a sudden, there was a lot of talk that Patrick Williams has a promise from Detroit that they'll take him at 7 if he's there. And then all of a sudden, Wednesday morning, they were saying Bulls could think about Patrick Williams at 4. And then all of a sudden, Adam Silver gets up to the mic and he announces Patrick Williams. And I was kind of stunned.
That is a stunner, isn't it? I didn't know anything about this kid really, and I still don't. I really don't.
He's really relatively an unknown. I mean, just because he was rising so much, obviously I watched like his pros and cons video. I really like that channel Hoop Intellect. I don't know if you watch him or not, but I mean, he had like really good analysis, like pros and cons of like every player and like projections and really like going over his film. So obviously I had to watch the Patrick Williams one. It's hard to know what to expect out of a guy. Like he's not going to be a star right away. He might not be on an all rookie team.
I'm going to be honest, man. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Bulls front office and honestly team, the coaching staff. It's going to put a lot of pressure on them trying to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at other guys that were kind of projects. I mean, like the ultimate project picks that panned out were Giannis and Kawhi Leonard in recent years. And then you look at Siakam. Like, I mean, Giannis was what 15. Kawhi Leonard was maybe 15 as well. Maybe 4. I forget where he was picked. Like Siakam was 27. I don't know if there's any other similar players that are like defense first, like project type guys. I mean, off the top of my head, I think Hachimura was another one, but he was more of a polished product, and that was why he went in the top 10. But yeah, I think that they probably weren't too high on this draft. And like I would have thought if there was a lot of connections between the Bulls and Denny Avdija throughout the draft process, and I thought he was going to be the pick, to be honest. But I guess they just weren't too high on this draft, and they figured that either we can get a guy who, at the worst, he'll just be like a solid defensive role player, and at his best, he could end up being a star if we develop him well. What they ultimately did, but shocking, wouldn't you say?
I would definitely say shocking. All right, so next, you had the Cleveland Cavaliers, Denny Avdija.
We'll go with Avdija for now.
So then, the Cavs didn't actually take this guy, which I can't blame him. They took Isaac Okoro. That's still a great pick at that position.
Yeah, I love Okoro's game. He's a little bit of a project offensively, but defensively, I think he's the best player in this draft because of his ability to guard.
It's interesting that they went with a defensive. I mean, Colin Sexton's a great defensive player.
Drummond is like mediocre. He'll get like some blocks, but I wouldn't say he's like too much of a force. He's kind of inconsistent. Like Sexton's like weird because he's like athletic. Like I would say like his best attribute right now is like scoring, but I feel like he could be a really good defender if he wants to, but he's not like locking anyone down. Who was the other guy that they took last year? Garland. I mean, Garland isn't really like lockdown either, and I don't know how much longer Drummond will be there. And then Kevin Love is okay defensively. I mean, kind of the same deal. He probably won't be there too much longer. I'm sure that he'll get traded to a team that's looking for another like big piece, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I think this pick, they kind of had a hole at the three. And now they have like their go-to defender at the very least, this dude's gonna be probably like an all defense team guy in a couple of years.
Yeah, I just think that there was better scoring options. I mean, I don't know. I guess scoring isn't the only name of the game. You might want that guy that can guard Kawhi down the stretch,
Yeah,
eventually.
I think he definitely has tons of potential. If he can develop a good 3-point shot, like he could be a really nice player. I think definitely fits in need. They probably swung a little early for him, but I don't think that's too far off from his range, like Patrick Williams at 4 was.
Okay, so that was 5. And 6, we had the Atlanta Hawks select Okongwu. Okay, so here I had Golden State trading down to 6, as we went over before. That was incorrect. But, however, here in the mock draft, we did have Okongwu going. Did predict him going pretty high, and so he went 6. And again, mine was to the Warriors, but this Hawks pick is really interesting to me because as of today, Gordon Hayward has declined his player option, which means he's an unrestricted free agent, which means
Correct.
sign and trade is still on the table,
I'm pretty sure you could still do a sign and trade.
but it makes it more difficult for sure. I don't really know when things went so sour with Hayward. I don't really.
Neither, dude. I could not believe when I saw.
And maybe
when
they're
I
not
got the
sour. Maybe he's
notification.
just ready to move on, which is fine. I don't know. We kind of babied him for 2 years and whatever. But okay, so now he wants to leave, even though we gave him like 2 years to start scoring 17 points. And the second he does, he gets hurt. But whatever. I digress. The main thing is the player that the Celtics were looking at taking was Okongwu. We were looking to trade into the top
Right.
3 for James Wiseman, for sure. Then we kept looking to trade up, maybe 5, 6, and we were trying to take Okongwu. And then, okay, lo and behold, the Hawks take him. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with the Celtics sign and trade with Hayward. But I read that the Hawks actually have enough money to outright sign. They have enough cap.
Yeah, I think they have like the most. I think the Knicks and the Hawks actually have the most cap space right now.
Which is a bummer,
If
but
I saw that correctly. Yeah, like almost every mock draft that I saw, like the day or two before the draft, everyone had a Conroy going at 9 to Washington. I think if he went down to Washington, that you guys easily could have been able to swing a trade to get up there.
I don't know. I'm not dying for him. The player I wanted the absolute most in this draft was James Wiseman, just because, as I said on the last pod, I like big guys.
Yes.
We'll get to the Celtics pick in a little bit. Anyway, we were correct. We were half correct. Okongwu, number 6 to Atlanta, which actually makes 4 out of the first 6.
Yeah, 4 out of the 6, and about to be 5 out of 7 in a way.
Okay, yeah. So the next one, Detroit. So in the mock draft, Al had traded up with the Knicks to acquire Killian Hayes, but here that trade didn't happen. Pistons take Killian Hayes, number 7. What do you think?
When I saw how this draft was breaking, when I saw Patrick Williams go, I mean, at 4, I was like, damn, that means he's not going to 7, but none of the other teams beside the Pistons would have taken Hayes. I was like nervous because there was a lot of talk that the Knicks could be looking to trade up, and that was why we got the 23rd pick the day of. And I thought that unless they were trying to get in front of Detroit for Hayes, that trading up didn't make sense for trying to go up for Topin, just because I thought that he could have fallen if he didn't go to Cleveland. I don't know. I was kind of, I definitely was hoping that Detroit was going to pass up on Hayes, because I think ultimately he's going to be, I like him as the number 2 point guard in this draft, and I think most teams did. I heard that even the Knicks did, but the Knicks obviously did fall in love with Topin, so they were able to get their guy at 8. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think Detroit, by acquiring 3 picks in the first round yesterday, they really kickstarted the rebuild. Killian Hayes absolutely could be a franchise point guard. He might not be a star right away, you know what I mean? He might maybe average like 10 and 5 this year, but they're just going to have to work with him, be patient, develop. I mean, between him, they drafted Sekou last year, and then they also got Sadiq Bey, who I thought was an interesting fit. I thought he would have fit better on like a playoff team already, and then Isaiah Stewart. So I think that they're going to go all in and be playing all these guys, you know what I mean, all their young guys. And I think taking Killian Hayes and getting your point guard as a foundational piece at 7 was a no-brainer to me.
Sure. As you said, he's definitely the best, second best point guard in the draft. And that's somebody that they desperately needed. In our trade, I remember Detroit had received Dennis Smith Jr. for this pick, so essentially getting in our mock draft, essentially getting the point guard that they needed anyway. So I think this definitely works out better. Killian Hayes right now, has more potential than Dennis Smith Jr., but that's not saying Dennis Smith Jr. couldn't earn that potential back. I think
No,
he's definitely
exactly.
possible too. Which brings us to number 8. Knicks take Tyrese Halliburton in our mock draft, but in real life, it ended up much better. You guys took Obi Toppin.
Yeah, I just want to hear your outsider perspective first.
Sure, I think Obi Toppin was a steal at 8. I really do. I think he's a powerful scorer, really athletic. I think you guys can set sail on Kevin Knox. I think the Kevin Knox experiment is over, but I think Obi Toppin and Mitchell Robinson, a serious dynamic duo. Never mind the fact that you guys have RJ and whoever decides to run the point at the time. I don't really know, but
I don't think anyone knows, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think Obi Toppin seriously was a really good pick for you guys, and I'm surprised you guys didn't blow it. No offense.
Yeah, I think if the Knicks took Tobin and left Hayes on the board, like I would have understood, but it like would have left a sour taste in my mouth if Killian Hayes were to become. I mean, if Killian Hayes becomes like a star point guard, like it'll be upsetting. We missed him by one pick, just like it seems that always happens. But I mean, just the fact, out of all the guys that were left available, I mean, who else maybe has his upside? I think Denny Avdia maybe, but I don't know. Avdia, he definitely a good passer, good like point forward type player, but not the greatest scorer. I mean, Obi Toppin, he has the potential to be an absolute mismatch offensively. Like I think he shot almost 40% from downtown, or like he shot a lot better from downtown than you would have expected. I mean, and just like look at his highlights. I mean, the dude's incredibly athletic. He's been compared to Amari Stoudemire. Um, I think like with some Blake Griffin comps as well. I mean, not saying that he's going to become that level of player, and he is already 22 years old. But you look at what he's done. I mean, he had a red shirt after his postgraduate year of high school. He had to redshirt because of that. I mean, his redshirt freshman year is pretty good. His redshirt sophomore year was miles better. So between being 21 and 20, his age 20 and 21 seasons, I mean, the dude got so much better. So just because they're 22 years old doesn't mean that he doesn't have potential in the league. You look at Damian Lillard, right? His first NBA game was also at age 22, and the dude is a top 10 player in the league. So I'm not too worried about that. The Knicks already have plenty of youth, but just the combination on the fast break between Topin, Barrett, Mitchell Robinson. I mean, those three are crazy athletic. I mean, those are three absolute plus athletes at three positions. And obviously, the biggest knock on Obi is going to be his defense. I think it's going to help that he's going to have Mitchell Robinson there, especially in the beginning while he's adjusting to the NBA. That he has one of the best defensive centers. Going to cover his tracks. I think Tom Thibodeau, and if there's one thing he's been known for throughout his coaching career, it's defense.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, do you think that this guy's going to be your number one scorer?
I don't know, because I think like RJ Barrett's a pretty good scorer, especially if he can get his jump shot up to par. But he's a really good overall player. I think like Tobin just has the potential to be an absolute mismatch. Like he definitely has the potential. And honestly, like looking at this draft where there's not a Zion, there's not a Ja, like Obi, especially being like one of the older or like the oldest lottery pick, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he could low key contend for rookie of the year as well. And the Knicks haven't had a rookie of the year since I think Mark Jackson
Jeez.
in the '80s. So
Well, I think
not
that was,
that
as
not
I
that
said, I think that was definitely the right pick for you guys, and
oh
he is the last person I see there that has has that star potential.
dude, 100%. I mean, the thing about like Danny, who we'll talk about soon, like at first people like saw the Luca comp but honestly it was a lazy comp just because they saw one video of him working on a step back. That's like not nearly his game at all. And I think because teams have more time to do research, I think that's why he like fell a little bit is just his lack of being able to create a shot. I mean, Obi will just be able to drive around people, and honestly, it's just like how some people were like, "Oh, Zion's only what six? What is he 6'7"? Like he's gonna be undersized for the four." And then he got to the NBA, and he was just freakishly athletic and could jump over everybody. I think, um, like offensively, just at that part of the game, Obi could almost be like a light version of. I don't see him not succeeding as a scorer.
Moving on a little bit here. So we mentioned Denny Avdija. Is that how we say it, Al?
We'll go with Afdia for now until
Avdija.
we get corrected by the announcers.
So the Wizards took him here. I think that was a decent pick for them. As I said, I believed Obi is the last guy that has that star potential. I think Denny is just a wild card. Anytime you draft somebody from EuroLeague or anything like that, you really are getting a wild card. You don't know. We don't know here. We can watch video, but when they're averaging, I mean, his numbers aren't that great in EuroLeague, but he's somebody that's played there for a couple of years, so I think he's got potential. And you never know; those guys can come over. I mean, Kristaps, Luka, Dirk. People that kind of like those EuroLeague players usually come over here and they either flop or they have great success. So I think them taking that was just them throwing up a Hail Mary, where Obi Toppin was like the last, like that was like a 3rd and 3 or something. That was like kind of like an easy play. You just run the ball, you get it through, you get the first down. The Wizards taking Denny here is kind of like a Hail Mary. This is like their last hope putting together a team, because John Wall's going to be here this year. Bradley Beal's going to be here this year. They're going to have Thomas Bryant. They're going to really try to do their best to make a push. I don't know, but if it doesn't work, they're going to be in the lottery for the next like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years plus,
I think Denny at 9 is also great value. I mean, I don't even know if I used the word value when I was talking about Obi at 8, but Obi at 8, I mean, it's great value in this draft. Denny at 9 is also really good value. Like, he's a guy that could have gone top 4, realistically. And his fit as like another guy to stretch the floor. I mean, obviously Beal's a crazy shooter. Hachimura's not a bad shooter. Definitely, he's very good in the mid range. He's got to get that 3-point shot a little better. I mean, Denny's going to be a great.
I don't know, man. To be honest with you, I never really bought in on his hype. His numbers
Denny
are
or
really not good.
Hachimura?
Denny.
Yeah, and like I saw his numbers. Like his numbers in some Euro leagues are better. Like there was one league he was in where he was averaging where it was like 15 points, and there was another league where he was like a role player that like barely played for some reason. He averaged like 4 points, and I was like, what the hell is that?
I don't know. I'm not really big on this guy. I think, as I said, I think the only reason you really do take this guy is because you don't know a lot about him. I mean, he can clearly pass the ball. I don't really know that he can score, but you do have Bradley Beal and John Wall.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's like a solid shooter who could be like a secondary playmaker. That's more what I see. I mean, like sure, like he's like an unknown. One of the main reasons you draft a guy like him, but I see him more as like a solid player.
Yeah, but at that point, I think you take somebody better, like a better role player. Like I think you take a Devin Vassell or a Sadiq Bey. I think you take people that can really give you a certain thing, as opposed to Denny, who's just kind of like, he's pretty decent at most things. I didn't love this pick. I thought this guy should have went way lower. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why his name was so high. In my opinion, I just think that there are people out there that can clearly do better things, craftsmen that can clearly shoot the three, clearly defend, but I don't really see anything clear in this guy's game other than he's 6'7". So that's just not doing it for me, but that's a Wizards move, I guess.
I feel like they tried. I kind of agree. Like they were trying to pick up a 3rd and 16, and like they could pick up a 3rd and 16 with Dennett. He might get open. He might find a hole in the zone, or he might just be. I see him being like a Dario Saric type of player. I mean, definitely some more upside there. I mean, Saric isn't a bad player either, but that's just like the kind of the type of player and like the trajectory I see for a guy like Denny.
Sure.
All right, so Jalen Smith at 10. What
Okay,
do you
so the
think of
Suns,
that?
yeah, so the Suns draft Jalen Smith at 10, and we had the Phoenix Suns taking, so for Washington, we had them taking Devin Vassell at 9. Again, a great 3-and-D player. Would have been awesome, but whatever. At 10 here, we have, I had them taking Precious Achua. That did not happen. They took Jalen Smith. What did you think about that?
Shocked. I thought Achua would have been the guy. I think reason being the Phoenix Suns are basically the Oakland Raiders of the NBA. They kind of reach every single year. Like they have their guy that they want, and no matter what position they're in, they'll take him. Just like it's really what John Gruden does with the Raiders in the NFL draft, and everyone's like, "What the?" the hell is he doing? And that's kind of like how I feel with the Suns. Like the Suns, they traded back from 6, didn't get too much back, and then they ended up with Cam Johnson, who was like a fine rookie, but I mean, obviously limited upside. And that's kind of how I feel. I mean, Jalen Smith I had seen as high as 14, but he was probably supposed to go in like the 20s. If we're talking about the pick, like roster wise, they kind of have a hole at the four. I mean, Sarge is going to be leaving, and the main guy who I see a lot of in Jalen Smith's game is Serge Ibaka.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even if he can become Serge Ibaka light, I think that's a great fit with the current roster. He might even be able to start day one, or at least be a contributor day one.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
too sure of his offensive and I know that's obviously not his concern. I think, what did he have? Like maybe 15, 10, and a
yeah,
couple
I think
block
he.
shots or something in college.
Yeah,
I mean, I like him. He's got goggles, a mask wearer myself. I kind of I like the accessories of basketball, so I support him. I like him. I think it is a little interesting for the Suns. In my opinion, they're like 9 young, good players. Like you got to just give it. I mean, like I guess they got rid of Oubre, but I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I think Chris Paul will help them defensively with leadership, and I mean, he definitely makes the team relevant and will probably put them in playoff
I guess
contention
that's true,
more
man.
than
If
they
he
were
took the
last year.
Thunder, who
Dude,
arguably had a worse roster,
I think the Suns will be. I think the Suns could be. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of good teams in the West, but they could be top five, top six if everything goes well.
no, absolutely not. I definitely don't think so. But they
I
don't
don't
have that
know.
winning. No. Like whose roster do you think is better? Okay, so the Phoenix Suns last year or the Thunder last year?
I mean, the Thunder made the playoffs.
No, but whose roster is better?
I
Because
mean,
the Thunder, sure, like, they were a young roster, but really were they? Because they had an old man Steven Adams, an old man Gallinari, an old man Chris Paul. Then they just so happen to have a young Shai Gilgeous.
yeah, they had Shy and like Lou Dort showed up in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he was big for a little bit, but it's like, man, that was like an older, experienced roster. I just can't see DeAndre Ayton being a starting center on a playoff team. I just can't. I don't think
I
he's
mean,
got enough experience on him.
they were a much better team. Obviously he was suspended at the beginning of the year last year. They were a much better team. I almost kind of disagree. I know you said like they had a lot. They definitely have a lot of young guys, especially like wings and guards. And they traded some of those guys away. I think Jalen Smith is almost kind of like a complimentary piece who isn't to be asked to do too much. And that's why I would have taken Achua here because it's kind of similar that he'll bring defense and be able to fill that hole at the four. But I kind of like bringing Smith in, but I would have traded down, dude. Somebody who needed a guard could have traded up for Halliburton. Somebody could have traded up.
I don't
I don't
even
know
know
the
why the
Celtics.
Kings took Halliburton. We'll get there. I don't have a problem with the Jalen Smith draft. I just think that there are a lot of. I guess you're right. I think there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen in Phoenix, but he's not a cook. He's kind
He's
of
a
like
little,
a server. He just
a little sous chef.
yeah, he's a little sous chef action. That's enough metaphor. At 11, Spurs take Devin Vassell. I mean, classic Spurs pick. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't even want to talk about it. That's how just classic
it
Spurs pick
is.
it
I
was.
mean, I had them taking Okoro, just very similar. You know, he's gonna be a good defender. He'll be a better shooter than Okoro would have been. They needed a wing.
They needed a
This
3 and D, and that's exactly what this guy is. It just fits perfectly.
Yeah, my only thing, I think the Spurs kind of have like they're gonna need to suck again next year. Like they need another good, they need a young player that could be like an alpha. You know what I mean? I mean Vassell kind of does have some untapped potential.
Yeah, but he's
Like I
not going to be
said,
a Kawhi Leonard,
no, exactly. Like I said in our draft video though, how whatever he's 3 and D, but it's like, oh, but here's him putting the ball on the floor and scoring, and like here's him showing athleticism like on the break and this and that. I mean, so he definitely has another year to his game that he could take, but I think the Spurs are a great place for him. I think it's a great pick with everybody left in the if they had gone Halliburton, that's basically just like having two DeJounte Murrays on the roster.
Yeah, and still remember you have Bryn Forbes and Derek
Yeah.
White, in the
Yeah.
guard position, so you don't want to overload. Speaking of overload, we come to number 12. The Kings draft Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know what this was about, man.
Me neither, to be honest. I think like what I was saying, a lot of these teams, they're taking like 2 point guards, right? So Chicago kind of, not Chicago, Charlotte kind of, right? I mean, the Hawks almost. I thought that Halliburton could have been good on the Hawks as like a secondary ball handler playing the two, but I mean, they have Fox there, so I guess they'll be having Halliburton play off ball. But
Where is
he's
Buddy Hield?
He's still on them, dude. I guess they're going to be trading Buddy Hield. I mean, Bogdanovich allegedly is going to be going to the Bucks.
No, that fell through.
I know it fell through, but he's going to be a free agent and probably sign there anyway.
No, he said he didn't want to go there. That was the whole thing. That's why it fell through.
I don't know. Like whatever happened, he's not going to be back in the Kings. I don't think. I don't know. I mean, if they trade Buddy Hield, it makes a little bit more sense. But then for a guy like Halliburton, he's kind of he's pretty good defensively. He's a little bit passive, not the greatest shooter. And then I mean, Fox is just a blur. I mean, he's crazy fast. Like pretty good shooter, pretty good scorer. I mean, what you want out of a point guard. So you kind of just have 2 point guards out there, but you don't have with no more Bogdanovich. I mean, and assuming you trade Buddy Hield, unless you're going to be playing him at 3, where he's already a defensive liability to begin with. Like I don't know what you're doing really. I mean, you have Harrison Barnes, who's fine. Jabari Parker, I think he is an option that they could pick up, but that's not. I mean, Jabari Parker's not a shooter. I mean, and who's the guy that took 2nd overall 2 years ago? Bagley. Bagley's not really a shooter. He's not stretched on the floor either. So
I'm going to be honest with you. I think that in our draft, on our mock draft, I had them taking Sadiq Bey.
Exactly, dude. Sadiq Bey would have been the perfect player for them.
Yeah, from Villanova, 6'8", 216. He was averaging 16 points, 5 boards, 2.5 assists.
But he shot almost 50% from the arc, dude. Look at that team. They need shooting. I mean, Buddy Hield is probably going to be gone. Bogdanovich is probably going to be gone.
No,
they need shooting.
And it's like, so are you really going with Harrison Barnes at your 3? Because that's not a good move.
Harrison Barnes about as average of a 3 as you're going to throw out there. It's even if you draft a guy like, I mean, Steve Bay, I mean, he'll probably start for the Pistons right away, I think, at the 3. But
and I think he should.
Even if he comes off the bench, plays 20 minutes a game for the Sacramento team, he could provide so much. Or even if they take Nesmith, you know what I mean? There's so many good options. Even if they really wanted, I don't know. I mean, Halliburton, out of all the guys left, whatever, he has good potential. I mean, a lot of people raved about what he brings to the table and his massive improvement this past year, but I don't know. I'm not sure I necessarily see the fit.
Yeah, I'm going to give that one a thumbs down.
Kings are just kind of a weird team, man. I mean, they hit the Fox pick, but it was obvious. But they drafted Marvin Bagley over Doncic. I mean, Buddy Hield they traded for in that Cousins trade.
Yeah, to me, that's another team that has too many cooks in the kitchen. And if you look up and down, who could use more cooks in the kitchen is Portland. Somebody
Portland
like
needs cooks, bro. Dude, no, exactly. They need more. They need more younger cooks because obviously Damian Lillard's the real deal. But
you know why I think the system's broken? To be honest with you, and there's no way to fix this. The bad teams every year end up in the lottery, right? Because they have all these young guys, so they just keep getting more and more top-level draft talent. But it's like, what are you going to do with 8 lottery picks?
Exactly,
like 8
and
years in a row, you can't do anything, man. You know who needs that is the teams that are getting bounced out of the first round, like teams like Portland. Teams like Orlando, like they're the ones that need the freaking top lottery picks, but they'll never get them.
Orlando has some cooks, dude. Even Orlando has some cooks.
I guess that's true, but
no, but 100%, dude. Dallas too. I know Dallas has like the best young player on the planet.
Dude, because they're dealing with Dorian Finney-Smith if he's still on that team. If you're stuck at mediocrity, and it's like the poor keep getting richer, but you know what I mean. But they're staying at that low level. It's like the people that are in the middle. The mediocre teams, or even teams that aren't mediocre, but maybe just fall in that category. Don't you think Toronto could have used a really good young player? I think Memphis could have used a really good young player, but they didn't get one because they were bounced out of the first round, or didn't, or not.
Yeah, Memphis.
But they were bounced.
Traded their pick, I think.
They were bounced earlier than they should have been. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, dude. Sacramento and a lot of their younger players, once they're there for 4 years, Willie Cauley-Stein left. I think, isn't Harry Giles going to be a free agent this year?
Where is Willie Cauley-Stein?
Dallas, actually. Dallas. He played on Dallas, but he's a free agent. It might not be a bad pick if Halliburton does somehow become a star player or something like that, but I don't see the fit.
I don't see it.
Aside from, I mean, you have Fox, Bagley, they're supposed to be building blocks, but the Kings are really reaching that territory where they have a young team, and that young team's still going nowhere.
All right, give me 13 here. We got Kyra Lewis Jr.
Another team that they kind of loaded up on point guards as well.
I'm going to say,
They
honestly,
just,
it's because Lonzo Ball is not staying in New Orleans. He's
dude, he's
gone.
not. He can't. That it wouldn't make sense unless they're trading Bledsoe and George Hill, dude. They have four like point guards that are going to need minutes on the roster,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, Eric Bledsoe's. I don't even know if you could have one of them for a year. Would you rather have Lonzo Ball or Eric Bledsoe?
I guess it depends what your team's trying to do, but I'd rather have
Hmm.
Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, I mean,
I think this Pelicans team could make the playoffs.
no, they could and they probably should, but they have so many guards. I will not say a bad thing about Kyra Lewis. I think he has a lot of different guys. I can't really name one guy that he plays like. He's probably the fastest player in the draft since Fox, and he's also a knockdown shooter if he plays off the ball. But how can you bring in Bledsoe in a trade and even George Hill and then draft Kyra Lewis while you already have Lonzo? That's just, we're talking about too many cooks. That point guard room has too many cooks. That's four legitimate cooks. That's four guys that are trying to wear the chef's hat, bro.
I'll tell you what,
And you,
though, after the lights go out and those four cooks with maybe a chef's knife or something, after that light goes out, the only person still standing when the light goes back on is Kyra Lewis.
100%, dude.
He's the only one that, I mean, Bledsoe's an old man. He's gone. They don't need him. I think they lose Derek Favors. I think they lose J.J. Redick. And all those veterans they tried to bring in to kind of mask the illusion that they weren't just one of these too many cooks in the kitchen. I want to think of a name for these young teams with just too many young guys. I don't even know what to call them.
Yeah, we got to come up with one because there's a lot of them.
They're
But
like teeny baby teams or something.
yeah, I mean, I mentioned this the other day, dude. Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Zion. That's an incredibly young big three. And then Jackson Hayes, kind of a project. I'm not putting him in that yet.
Yeah, but
I
I
need to
don't
see
think
more out of
Lonzo's
him.
in that big three. I think
Dude,
that's the
I
problem.
think Ingram's even a restricted free agent. They have to bring him back. They still do, but I think Lonzo's probably on the chopping block, and the Knicks don't have a point guard. If the Knicks do put together a package for Lonzo, you definitely won't see me complain, depending on who's in it, but even still. I mean, maybe they didn't like what they saw in the bubble from him, and they could sell low on him and just go all in with Kyra. But
They got to wait to see what he's got. He's got to bulk up. He's a little dude too, you know.
I won't knock this Kyra pick like we did with Halliburton pick because I mean the Kings aren't going to get rid of Fox, right? And I don't know if the Kings necessarily have a plan to get him more shooting on this roster. I mean the Pelicans kind of just drafted a guy that they know he could become a really solid point guard, and already with Zion on the roster, at the very least he'll be a guy who could that can stretch the floor as well, kind of like Alonzo not necessarily can.
Maybe they're just trying to
Consistently,
light a fire under Lonzo. Maybe they're
maybe. I
just
mean,
trying to
if you think
spark
about it,
something
dude,
in him.
if you think about it, like you could have those two guys. I mean, all these teams are running two point guards out there. I mean, Lonzo and Kyra are two completely different players. Lonzo a lot better defensively, but Kyra can still hold his own. Lonzo more pass first. Kyra not a ball hog by any means, but definitely a much better scorer. So, I mean, if you have the two of them, that's pretty solid. Like whatever, you could work with that. Just like I'm sure you could work with Fox and Halliburton with the right pieces around them.
Sure.
But with Bledsoe and Hill there, I'm not sure what they're doing, but I feel like they have a plan more than Sacramento. And they obviously have much better talent with Ingram and obviously Zion.
All right, to round out the lottery here, we have the Celtics kept their draft pick and drafted Aaron Nesmith from Vandy.
Do you want me to give my outsider opinion
Please,
like
I
you
would
did
love
first?
that. I'd love that.
I think this pick is just about as good as it gets for Boston. We had Nesmith go in 13, right? I said that he would be a great just plug and play guy at the two. I know they had JJ Redick. I mean, he'll be 3 and D, and just the jump he made from last year to this year, even though in limited games at Vanderbilt, I mean, Nesmith was awesome. And on Boston, he's not going to be asked to do too much. They already have, at least as of right now, they got Kemba, they got Marcus Smart, and then they got the two young guys, Jalen and Jason Tatum. Just like Jalen Brown, his rookie year was kind of a role player. He played 15 to 20 minutes off the bench. I think that's exactly what they're going to ask from Nesmith. And then Nesmith is what, like 20? They'll still be able to develop him as well. Brad Stevens about as good as it gets at developing talent. But just looking at everybody on the board, dude, that fit is so good. I mean, you look at all the teams under him, the Magic, they could have drafted him easily. Portland traded the pick to the Pistons, could have drafted him easily. Timberwolves drafted Anthony Edwards, so it wouldn't have made too much sense. Mavericks definitely would have drafted him. My brother wanted Nesmith, and then the Nets. I mean, they dealt it to the Clippers. Right? No, or that traded to the Pistons, and then even the Heat. I mean, they got Hero last year, but they probably wouldn't have turned down shooting either. All the teams underneath definitely would have been coveting a player like Nesmith, and I think he's the best shooter in the draft and can help Boston right away and also develop into a really good player down the road.
Just watching a lot of his catch and shoot, a lot of his going over the top shooting threes. I think he's definitely going to be a player that we can count on early. Who knows what's going to happen with this Gordon Hayward thing, if we're going to shy away from kind of doing that. Basically, I mean, we were at times we were playing basically like we're like 2 through 5. We're no taller than 6'9".
Yeah.
Basically all in that same kind of forward size. And if Hayward leaves, who knows if we move away from that. But it would be nice to have a true shooter on the roster playing big minutes. I feel like sometimes we just can't make a bucket if we bought one.
No,
So
100%.
I'm excited. And, I would have liked to use some of these other picks on big men. We didn't, and happy that we have Nesmith for now. And who knows what the rest of the roster is going to look like. I trust Danny. I mean, he's drafted. I know people say he hasn't drafted well in the past because, we've had Avery Bradley and Scary Terry. I don't know, man. I think Danny does make the right moves, and I do have faith in him. So Nesmith is good. Tatum's good. Brown's good. I'm just going to roll with that for now.
Yeah.
And hopefully
I
we
think,
get something for Hayward,
I mean, I think you guys definitely have your hits and misses, but, I mean, that seems, especially with who's on the board, it's just the fact that he has a pretty high floor, which at the very least, he'll be a really good shooter at the NBA level and be able to provide solid defense. I think for a team that's trying to compete for a title, like you said all of these other teams, right? Your Portland, Dallas, any of these teams that are just getting bounced in the first round that are cap strapped, right? That need another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Boston was able to make a savvy move a while ago. I don't even know how you got this pick, but you were able to get into the lottery and get another young player to contribute. I mean,
this was a trade with Memphis.
That's off.
I don't remember the exact details of it. I think it had to do with Jay Crowder. Like, we basically got Memphis's pick. We would have had it last year, but it was too high. I think it was like a 1 through 5 or something. Had a protection, so they got Jaw. So, I mean, that's how we got it. But yeah, he's not going to be our star, but we already have our star moving forward. I mean, I think we have 2 of them, to be honest. We have 2 stars. So, and Kemba's going to complement that, and whoever, unfortunately Gordon's leaving, but whoever we get for him, hopefully we'll be able to complement that as well. I'd like to see a center. I wouldn't have minded getting Clint Capella for Gordon or John Collins or something like that from the Hawks, but I don't know what will happen now with his contract. Anyway, why don't we go through the rest of the draft and just kind of like hit some of the picks that we thought were pretty standout-ish.
All right. I mean, so I guess we might as well brush on Cole Anthony. I mean, they already have Fultz, right? And I don't know. To me, I think Cole Anthony and Fultz are very similar players. And I think just the fact that Fultz didn't really live up to his number 1 overall pick status and Cole Anthony didn't live up to his top 5 recruit status. I don't know. I mean, they definitely both have stuff to prove, but it'll be interesting. I guess they'll see our backcourt together now.
Yeah, I think you can slot Fultz at the 2, and I know we can't really shoot, but he's a pretty good slasher. I'd say he's fine at the 2 if you want to play the 2 of them together, but I say that Cole Anthony is their point guard of the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just another one of those teams. They're just going to have 2 point guards out there and roll with it. I mean, I guess the more ball handlers, the merrier.
I'd like to talk about the Pistons acquiring a couple picks up in here. They got Isaiah Stewart from the Blazers, and they also got Sadiq Bey from the Nets. They kind of put in some moves, which I respect because they needed that.
They did, because think what they're going to do. I don't remember who they hired as their coach, but I think they have a new coach, and they're just going to be going all in on just playing the young guys, and it's going to suck for a couple of years. They'll still have Blake Griffin there, so they'll have somebody. I mean, there won't be fans in the stands, I don't think.
As of right now, they have Derrick Rose, don't they?
Yeah, and they also have Derrick Rose, right? So they have 2 guys that, I mean, people still tune into Piston games, the casual fans, whatever. Those are 2 names to watch. But I think they're going to be developing all of those guys. Right now, they don't even have another big man on the roster, another center on the roster besides Isaiah Stewart. Sadiq Bey should probably start at 3 right away. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he definitely warrants playing time just because he was a 2-year player Villanova, so a little bit older than some of these other guys in the draft. Just his NBA readiness. That's what I think. That's my opinion on Bay. I think that's
Sure.
we might as well brush on Poku going to the Thunder. I kind of the same deal as the Pistons.
He does have some upside for sure.
He definitely has upside, and they just have all the time in the world. Really, the Thunder, they have all these draft picks. They're not trying to make the playoffs anymore, so they just have all the time in the world to develop a guy like Poku. Just like the Pistons now have all the time to develop their young guys. They just got 3 first-rounders. Are you surprised Poku did go this early? I know some people thought he could fall.
I am. That is way earlier than I thought. I saw him mostly in second round mock drafts. I think everyone's willing to take that flyer on somebody from overseas. So I think why not? He's a 7-footer. The Thunder could use somebody like that behind Steven Adams for now. I think he's kind of a question mark.
I think he probably needs to gain between 30 and 40 pounds to be able to really compete at a high level in the NBA. I think he clocks in at around like 200 right now at 7 foot. And just defensively, he's not going to be able to hold up. He probably projects as a power forward, even though he's 7 foot. But I mean, defensively, he's probably not really going to hold up. I think the other wrinkle about his game that's nice is that he's a very good passer.
He's a great
And
shooter.
I think, yeah, and he has a good outside shot. Like the untapped potential is certainly there. So I think that's a great pick at 17 by the Thunder, even if he doesn't become a star in this league. Like, why not take the flyer when you have all the time in the world to develop him?
I thought another quick player that I thought was pretty interesting was Precious Achiuwa going at number 20.
Dude, the Miami Heat are they're such a well-run organization.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Precious at 20 is just a home run pick.
I was kind of like, damn, when I saw him go. That's somebody that I'd like. Memphis, again, 15, basically
I know
16
you like
points,
Precious a
11
lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where do we have him going?
We had him going up at 10, and like that was, especially with the Suns who reach, I thought that would have been a realistic and even like not a bad selection if he went 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't even know what else to say at this point. I mean, I think Precious could be kind of like Kenneth Faried, but only a really good defender as well. A little bit of an outside shot, and just the fact that they already have all that shooting on that team and Bam Adebayo next to him. Great selection, in my opinion.
You know what? In our draft, we had OKC taking Poku.
Yeah, right. At 25, 27. Yeah, we did. So we were almost a little bit right.
We'll add that into our thing. Yes. Well, so how many did we get right from our draft? 6 out of the 30?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.
Well, plus
so,
the
yeah,
OKC.
6. Yeah, we'll call it 6. I saw tons of worse mock drafts.
Where did Josh Green go?
Josh Green went to Dallas. I thought that we were just going to do just a whole little. I guess we might as well just talk about Dallas's whole draft. I mean, they traded Seth Curry for Josh Richardson. I mean, my brother's a Mavericks fan. He was pretty upset. Like, Seth Curry was probably like his second favorite player.
Overall, I would just say it was just a very boring draft trade-wise, and I guess a lot of the trades will just be coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hope so. And some of the trades happened before. There were a lot of trades that happened, but nothing crazy. I mean, but Dallas getting Josh Richardson, they'll get another defender out there that they desperately need. He's probably a better overall player than Curry, and then they also got a second-round pick. And then Dallas
speaking of picks, the Thunder just raked in even more.
Oh my God, dude, the Thunder. Yeah, they're insane. I think they're up to like 18 picks in that 6-year span.
I mean, if I'm being honest here, I don't know if I've said this before. Man, I think it's just kind of gluttonous, and I'm not really impressed by the Thunder getting that many picks. I don't really think that draft picks mean anything, to be honest with you. They're basically like currency from a country that hasn't existed yet. It's like, okay, so you're telling me in the 2022 draft you have 3 first-round picks. That's awesome, but who owns those picks? Is it the Heat that are probably still going to be good, the Milwaukee Bucks that are still going to be good, the Clippers that are still probably going to be good? So you're telling me that you're probably going to have like 25, 27, and 29, say. It's like, what are you going to find there? Where's your next player?
It's basically like whatever. The more first-round picks you have, it's like the more flyers. Sure, I guess if we're talking percentages, you have more of a better shot of hitting on guys. But I mean, if you have 18 first-round picks in 6 years, it's you can't even have 18 players on the roster. So I mean, I could see some of these guys just being a revolving door, or they're gonna have this ridiculous amount of picks. Like I mean, this is what we do in 2K. We do these ridiculous trades to get all these picks. So then finally, when we're like, all right, this is the guy we want, we just add this first, add that first, and then they're able to get their guy. So,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, maybe
suppose.
in the next couple of years, they do have a nice team.
The only thing is they're going to have to trade to make it right. They're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
trade for like I'm going to tell you what, man, in a couple of years, like people aren't going to be trading for James Harden. People aren't going to be trading for Paul George in a couple of years. Like those superstars, like the superstars that we know now, like the Kawhi, like LeBron, like Giannis, like or I guess Giannis is excluded, but they're not going to be the ones that people are giving up 5 draft picks for because they're going to be old, man. They're going to be like 35, 36.
Yeah.
The next people up, it's going to have to be like the Devin
It's going to be
Bookers.
like your Simmons, your
Yeah,
Tatum,
Simmons, Tatum, like,
but only hopefully for you, not Tatum.
yeah, no, exactly. But it's like, that. So it's kind of like crazy to think about, like, okay, they're going to shell out 5 first-round picks for Devin Booker, or you know what I mean, or I don't even know
Towns.
who, Brandon Ingram.
Yeah. That's kind of weird to think about.
It is. It's I don't
Um,
know.
but I think Dallas overall made great moves. They got Tyrell Terry at 31, a guy. I think from day one he'll just step into that Seth Curry role, that exact Seth Curry role, and then they also got Josh Richardson out of it. I mean, but Terry could be a quality starting point guard in the future. I mean, great shooter, great competitor. Getting him at 31, I think, was an absolute bargain. And then they went Tyler Bay, who's kind of like a combo forward, good defensive player.
Any relation?
Could stretch a little bit. I'm pretty sure no. I think just like the Bridges from a couple of years ago that had, I'm pretty sure no relation. I'm pretty sure there's also no relation between Tyler and Sadiq. Yeah, I mean, I would have tried to trade somebody else besides Seth Curry, to be honest. Maybe get rid of
Yeah, he was great for
um
them,
he was, dude. Like he really is one of the best shooters in the league.
especially being undrafted. I mean, that's just impressive.
Yeah, and like he should have been drafted too. Like it wasn't like he was an unknown player. Like Delon Wright, I wish for Dallas that they could have traded like Delon Wright, even Brunson. I mean Brunson probably gonna be their starting point guard this year, but I mean it's really gonna be Luca. So it doesn't matter who they put there. It's
No,
gonna need a
that's
guy
true.
who
That's
could
very true.
defend, hand the ball when they're double teaming Luca. But it hurts to get rid of Seth Curry. But I mean overall they still had a very productive day between getting. I mean Josh Green, very athletic. I mean, one of the better defenders in the draft, has really good shooting potential, good slasher that Dallas kind of doesn't have. Yeah, so I mean, between Green, Terry, and Tyler Bay, that's a solid draft. That's 3 guys who easily could have gotten in the first round. And Josh Richardson.
Yeah, man. Well, I think we had already said that. What did we get? 6 right out of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not bad. Again, I'll take that. With that being said, you hit us a little Knicks talk, and then I'll hit us with a little Celtics talk, and then we'll wrap it up.
I definitely would have wanted Terry myself, but it's all right. The Knicks, they traded for 23 and then 25, and they got whatever. At first, when I thought that we drafted Leandro Bolmaro at 23, I was pretty pissed. I'll be honest. To draft like a draft and stash player, when we're just trying to get our young guys to all play together, and especially a guy who could have gone in the second round out. And then all of a sudden, I heard we traded back to 25, so we got quickly. Might not have been the best player on the board. Might have been there at 33, the other pick we had. But I mean, overall, quickly is going to be a great shooter. He shot 92% from the line, and a lot of people say that free throw percentage is a really good indicator for how good of a shooter they'll be in the NBA. I mean, so he's a great shooter, and ultimately ended up being Kentucky's go-to defender down the stretch, and on a team that had other really good defensive wings and guards. So, I mean, I think that's a great fit. The Knicks kind of lacked shooting around guys like RJ Barrett last year, and he should be a good combo guard to add to the rotation right away.
Peyton Pritchard, underwhelmed with this pick, to be honest with you. I really would have liked to have gotten Vernon Carey here. We could have even got it with a 30th pick, as you were saying. I mean, I'm just not very excited for Peyton Pritchard. I mean, he could be exciting. Sure, maybe 6'2", point guard out of Oregon, senior. He could be experienced. I mean, Brad Wanamaker is the one that's ridden our backup point. Wow,
Yeah,
actually,
I
he got
guess.
the 1920 Bob Cousy Point Guard of the Year award at Oregon, which is kind of kind of funny. But I guess he's a pretty good scorer, 20 points per game in the Pac-12. I mean, that's pretty good. That's a tough conference.
I mean, Pritchard was a really good 4-year player at Oregon. I mean, good shooter, good defender. He brings everything, even like good leadership.
I wasn't familiar with him there. I don't know.
No, he had a lot of like clutch buzzer beaters as well. Like I
No,
saw
I'm sure he
some,
was good there.
highlights.
I'm
I'm
not taking that out. I just
good,
didn't
and
know
like
him.
Oregon was like always solid.
They have that ugly ass
Well,
court.
I think
That's
he was
probably why I
even.
never watched their games.
Oh, exactly. I think he might have even been like a freshman or sophomore on their Final Four team. Yeah, if I were you, I would have been excited about Vernon Carey.
Yeah.
Even it would have been more of a flyer type player, but Jaden McDaniels, who ended up going to the Timberwolves at 28, I thought that was a steal. The Celtics kind of need more win now players to add. So that's why I guess you can go Pritchard, and he might maybe be the backup point guard this year, or like in a year or so.
Yeah, and I think it's still going to be Brad Wanamaker. But, dude, I'll tell you who I would have loved. I would have loved Azubuike, one pick down, 7-foot center from Kansas. I would have loved that.
Yeah,
man.
you've always liked him as Azubuike.
Yeah, you know I love me some Azubuike. I love me some what, Al?
You love big guys.
I love big guys. I love them.
Even like Daniel Oturu from Minnesota, who we drafted and then traded.
What happened to my boy Killian Tilly?
Undrafted. I forget who scooped him up.
Oh, somebody did grab him.
Oh,
Anyway,
you guys also drafted Jan Madar in 47, probably a drafted stash, but not bad. But yeah, Killian Tilly would have been nice there.
I think it would have been nice. I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to hate on anybody before they come here. If Danny Ainge took him, then I'll trust him for now. But I would have liked to have seen an Azubuike or something like that, especially just because we traded Vincent Poirier, our backup center. We just traded him to the Thunder. Not our backup center, but our backup, our third string center. Yeah. But I would have liked to have seen a center there. But again, I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Free agency's coming up. Trade season's coming up. So as more happens, I mean, we'll definitely get back in the booth and we'll talk about what goes down.
Absolutely. Exciting things planned for the future. So as we work on that, we appreciate you listening to the episodes and staying with us.
Thank you very much. I mean, feel free to please subscribe so when we're coming out with content.
Yeah.
Feel free to comment, ask us things to talk about, anything like that. Tell your friends about us, looking to do whatever. I mean, we appreciate any of the support, and we hope you guys are enjoying what we're putting out and are excited about where this is going.
Well said, Al. All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care.
Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe.